Hello. I've come on a few minutes early and I am just giving anybody who's here a very big welcome. It's lovely to know if you're here and also where you're coming from. So I think I can see some people have already joined. So if what you'll see to your right is the little chat box. So this is a webinar, just so you know that you're not going to be seen. It's not like a Zoom, so you can, it doesn't matter what you look like or what you've got in your mouth or hand, you won't be seen or heard. But if you could just tell me in the chat box to your right where you're from. Usually your name comes up, so I'll know who you are. But just do tell me where you're coming in from, because it's lovely to know, as I say, where you're from. So I'm just going to make sure that my phone is on the right. Yeah, okay. So I've switched my phone off. I'm here with you. So this is Camilla. I think you probably already gathered that. But I'm not seeing yet anything in the chat box. So if you wouldn't, there's Tara from Richmond. Lovely. I don't know if I have a feeling that my chat box is a little bit slow to pick up. So you might have written it a minute or so ago. But I've got lovely Tara from Richmond. I'm here in South London, in Streatham in South London. And yeah, I know that I've got people registered from all over the world, which is incredibly exciting. So Morden, okay, really close to me, Jagoda, and Jasmine from Perth in Scotland, wonderful. So we've got all Brits so far. I know it's a little earlier in North America, but yeah, so I will just sort of welcome you all as you join me. And if you're just joining, do let us all know where you're from. And also maybe it'd be great to know what age your children are, because that's always really helpful for others and for me, just so I can kind of gauge the examples that I'm giving. So do pop that in the chat box as well, because that's nice to know. And I'll be telling you about my children, my big children, as we go through the masterclass. So you can hear about them, but some of you may already know me. Have any of you followed me on Instagram? If you haven't, do give me a follow, even if you don't really use Instagram normally. I've got quite a few followers who just like to see the tips and inspiration. Jamie's from Canada, amazing, with a little 22-month-old girl, lovely. And Jagoda's got a 15-month-old boy, wonderful. So you're really thinking ahead. Well, I suspect, you can easily start to have tantrums at those ages. So maybe you've, so Kira and Simon from Ealing have got 974. Cool, great. Okay, and oh wow, we've got lots of people coming on with lots of different age children. 20 Battersea Mike, great. 25-month-old and 7-month-old boy, fantastic. I honestly, genuinely can't tell you how exciting it is for me to be able to reach people from all around the UK and all around the world. It's just an amazing medium, for all the drawbacks of our digital world. There are massive benefits to be able to reach people who can sit in comfort of their own home on a Sunday night and be able to, I'll be able to reach them and they can, join me and other parents. So 2 under 2, Jasmine's got Stella, 20 months, and Hugo, 4 months. Thankfully, no tantrums with Hugo yet. So, oh my goodness. And Ruba's got a 10-month-old. Wonderful to be, thinking ahead. From Florida, wonderful. And Katie says she does follow me on Instagram. Okay, well, it is dead on time. So I want to, now I am just going to have to switch my phone completely off because I thought that it was not going to make nasty sort of beeps as I'm on the webinar. So can't even switch it off now. Silly thing. Why won't it switch off? Okay, I don't know. I'm going to chuck it across the room and hope it doesn't make nasty beeps as I'm on the class with you. So a really big welcome to everybody that's joined me so far. We've got people from all over the world, Calgary and Perth in Scotland and London and all over the place. So as you come on, do tell us where you're from. And also as people are, put your ages of your children in the chat box, because that's also really nice for others to see. And this is an environment that's very supportive. You know, I know it seems funny, you're just seeing names and where you're from, but that's what I always want to create, is just a supportive, honest environment. So I will be asking you questions as we move through the class, and I will just encourage you to engage in that chat box and tell us what it's like. So the secrets to managing tantrums, meltdowns, and misbehavior. So here's the goal of our time together. I'm going to be showing you the importance of how to connect with your child and manage challenging behavior without using force or overreacting. And what I mean by overreacting, it can for you translate to shouting, or it can be, just a sort of loud telling off, or it can be, perhaps a sort of a jerk of your child, or those kind of overreactions. And what I'm going to do now is just switch my camera off so that you can see the slides fully, and I'll be popping it back on again as we move through the class. So how to connect with your child and manage challenging behavior, including tantrums, meltdowns, rudeness. You'll hear me describe what I mean, without using force or overreacting. So what I'd like you to do is take time out and switch off your distractions. We're in a world full of distractions. So I don't know how you're watching me, whether it's a laptop or a phone or whatever, or a computer screen. But whatever else is around, do switch it off and take this time for you and get the most out of this free session. You've got approximately an hour with me, and make the most of it. So listen, this is for you if you are open to new ideas. So give me an open in the chat box. If you're closed-minded, this isn't going to be for you. So you might as well then go and get your glass of wine and watch some television. But if you're open to new ideas, then please stick with me. And what I want to find out for me and for others watching, because it's so helpful to know that you're not alone, is who's having these kind of challenges, who's having unpredictable tantrums and meltdowns. They can start early, they can start from anything from a year. Sometimes you see a baby having a tantrum, but I'm really not talking about techniques and tools to manage very early tantrums. We're talking about once they've got that comprehension. They may not have full language, but once they've got comprehension. So challenges with unpredictable tantrums and meltdowns, they won't listen to you, or they point blank refuse to do things. So we've got already people saying that they're open. Tell us if you're having that, if you're having tantrums, meltdowns, or they won't listen to you. So just make some sort of abbreviation in the chat box so we know where others stand, or that refusal to do things. What about this? Maybe you're having rudeness. They are demanding. Maybe they're screaming at you or for things. Maybe they're fighting you or other children, perhaps a sibling. Maybe they are aggressive. Maybe they're being unkind to you, again, you, another child or a sibling. Very defiant. Maybe you've got attitude. A lot of parents tell me that they've got a three-nager with attitude, well, who are you to tell me kind of thing. Back chat, somebody said. Yes, exactly. And that is incredibly frustrating, whether you're experiencing it at home or with in front of other people. It's humiliating. It makes you feel like you're a mug or a fool of a parent if you've got that kind of thing going on. And maybe your child, whether it's within the home or whether it's in a nursery school environment, they've got a bit of a label as the bad or the naughty one. Does anybody have that? Sometimes it happens within a family. You get a sort of juxtaposition of one child who's very easy and is the good one, and the other one gets known as the naughty one. But we're here today to give you ideas and inspiration to see what you can do. You can make that decision to change your approach and see the incredible results that you can get. So just tell me if you've got those kind of challenges, the rudeness, the aggression, the defiance, somebody's already said, the back chat, or the getting known as the bad or the naughty one. And listen, who feels like this? I thought that picture of a megaphone was quite apt. You're fed up with constantly nagging and repeating yourself to get your child to listen and do something. Perhaps you feel powerless. I know that was a very much a situation that when I came into parenting many, many years ago, when my eldest child was a toddler. So he was 2, he's about to be 24 this year. And I felt powerless. And, you know, it leaves you sort of your world sometimes starts to close in because you just don't know how to handle the child out of the house. And so you tend to sort of avoid certain social situations. I know that we haven't necessarily been exposed to so many, but anyway, that's, you know, the kind of that feeling of powerlessness. How can I be ruled by a toddler? Why aren't I in charge? It feels like perhaps nothing works. Maybe things do sometimes, and other times you just don't know what to do. Or perhaps you're worried that you're getting it all wrong. So tell again, you know, if this is resonating with you, just say, you know, yes, or whatever, you know, that powerlessness, nothing works, those kind of things in the chat box. The more you engage in the chat box, the more you're going to get out of this. And also, do you want to avoid the battles? Do you want them to listen to you without having to make shouts or threats? Because I think you do. But listen, none of us, I'm sure you are not here if you don't want to have more joy from your children, if you don't want to improve, or if you don't want to learn. So if you would like to have more joy, let's face it, who had a child in order to nag or shout or get cross with them or feel frustrated by them? Obviously, parenting, no, there's no perfection. No child is perfect. But if you feel like you're really tipping more away from the joy, just say if you would like more joy in the chat box and if you'd like to improve and you'd like to learn. So here's what I want to get across, is that being a compassionate parent is the most effective way of getting connection and cooperation and bringing out the best in your child. And sometimes we need permission for this, because sometimes we're surrounded by people who are telling us that that child just needs a good telling off, or you're being too soft if you are being compassionate. But being a compassionate parent is the most effective way of getting connection and cooperation and bringing out the best in your child. So I'm going to explain more about how you can get that and what I mean by that. I'm going to stick my little camera back on for a sec so you can see me if you've only just joined. You probably realize from the vast number of emails you've had to remind you to join me tonight that my name is Camilla. And you probably also got, whether it's from the emails or however way else you've found me, that I'm passionate about parenting. I absolutely love my job. I've been in this field for 20 years. I came in because I had struggles with my own children, and I'm a mother of 4. So I'm going to show you my children here. So I have my 2 boys, who are my older ones, Nico and Felix, and then they were followed by 2 girls. I feel very blessed to have 4 gorgeous children. And believe me, it's been a ride. And that's why I love helping you, because I want you to avoid some of the mistakes that I made, and also just learn from all the research and tried and tested techniques that I've learned over the years. So there they are now. They range between the age of 16 is Alice, my youngest, and Nico is 23. So what's unique about what I talk about is that these are really tried and tested techniques. This isn't waffly theory. It's practical and it's principles based on thorough research. So that's what's unique about me and what you'll get from tonight. So I want to ask about you. Are you an action taker? Because I want you to get a lot out of today. And I'm going to just switch my camera off so you get some more from the slides. I just really want to make sure that we've only got a short time together. So I will be towards the end telling you how you can take this further. But I want you to learn from tonight, and I want you to take things away with you. So tell me if in the chat box, are you an action taker? So give me a yes if that's you, if you're somebody that likes to run with things and take action. So tell me that in the chat box while I am going to tell you about what we in our family describe as that fateful holiday. So it is June 2005, and we go to France with some good friends of ours to stay in a house there together. So we have 4 children at this point. Alice is a baby, Scarlett's a toddler, 2-year-old, Felix is a 4-year-old, and Nico's 6. And we go and share this house with some good friends of ours. And it was incredibly difficult with Felix. There he is there. He looks like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. But that wasn't the case on the holiday. I actually found this picture of him, of all the children there. Guess who are my children versus our friends' children. So on this holiday, it felt like every which way we turned, there was a shout or a scream that Felix had done something, whether he had annoyed them and messed up their game, whether he had been a bad sport and sort of thrown a racket down and didn't want to play the game anymore. He was pushing them out of the paddling pool, or he would push them into the paddling pool. When it was meal times, our friends' children seemed to sit, and my others really well. The baby was a baby, but the others were pretty good. But Felix would say, "I'm not eating this," and we just found it so stressful, and we really weren't handling him very well. So one day, midweek, we go to the beach, and we had a fairly nice day there. On the way to the beach, the deal was that Felix got to sit in the middle seat of the car. That was the favored seat. I don't know if you've had this with your children, but there's arguments over car, where they're going to sit. And the deal was that on the way back, he had to swap and he had to sit in the back seat where you couldn't see so well. And they didn't particularly like that seat. So we've all gone towards the car. We've got our 3 strapped in. They've got their 3 strapped in, and Felix starts to kick off. And he starts to scream, "I'm not getting in the car. It's my turn to go in the middle. I don't like you. Get off me." He's screaming. He's kicking at me. He's pushing his hands and feet against the seat as I'm trying to get him into the frame of the door, as I'm trying to get him in. And our friends are watching us. And I'm feeling more and more irritated and more humiliated. And so I started off by saying, I'm going to try to bribe. Here, has a pack of Haribos, just get in the car, we've got to go. Absolutely no difference, he still carries on screaming. Then I said, right, you can't watch a movie when we go home. That threat didn't work. Then I tried a bit of a humiliation tactic. Look, they're watching you and you're making a fool of yourself. Absolutely no impact whatsoever. And he's still screaming and carrying on. And I just had to stop. And then I made the decision, I've got to approach this differently. I can't carry on doing the same thing, expecting a different response. I don't know about you, but when you've been in difficult situations with your children, so often we do the same thing and hope for a different response. So I took him and sat him on the side of this dusty car park. My head was pounding, my throat was dry, I was sweating, and he's lurching like a sort of bucking bronco, still carrying on screaming about the car and the seat, and he wasn't going to go in. And I decided I've got to use compassion. And I came to the mantra that I teach parents, and I teach them how to, now I know so much more, but it came into my head, there's something behind this. It's not about the car seat. But he was very difficult to get him to even hear me. But I held him tight, and I told him that I loved him. And I told him that it was going to be okay. And I told him that it was like Pirate Pete in a stormy sea. And I also said, as he started to calm down, I said, Felix, I don't think this is just about the car seat. And that gave him the permission to open up. And he started to cry, and he said, Mummy, you don't see what they do. He said, they tease me about my pull-up. And what they had been doing behind my back, knowing that it was like pulling the tail of the tiger, they had been teasing him, not so much his brother, but the other kids. Kids are horrible to each other sometimes, but they also know how to get a child that when they tug that tail, he's going to react. And that was what it was all, this whole build up was what it was all about. That and other things that we hadn't seen. So I got him back in the car. He'd calmed down by this time. I put him in the back seat. I didn't give in. I strapped him in and we drove off. And my husband said, what do you think they think of us? Already at that point, I had started to teach parenting skills. So it was sort of that double humiliation that I couldn't manage my own child. And I said to Paul, do you know what? In 20 years' time, he will always be our child. He will be our child for life. And they may not be our friends. So we've got to do the best for him. And we've got to treat him in the way that we know is right for him. And actually, they are still our friends. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about how Felix has turned out. But I want to ask you, who relates to that story? Because this is for you tonight. This is about you. What resonates for you as you heard me tell that story? And I'd love to hear from you in the chat box. What kind of things resonate for you? And I'm just going to take a little drink of water as you do that. Because I think we've all been there. That feeling of helplessness, that feeling of being watched or judged, that feeling of having a child that's out of control and you don't know how to handle them. So just a reminder that this is about connecting with your child and managing challenge behavior without using force or overreacting. I could have forced him into the car and I would never have heard what that was about. But I'd love you to imagine what it would be like to be a compassionate parent with consistent and firm boundaries. So I'm all about compassion, but that doesn't mean that it's compassion with giving in. But it's consistent and firm boundaries combined with compassion. And imagine what life would be like. I know you love your children. You're spending time with me tonight because you love your children. Your children are like little seedlings growing into amazing oak trees. And your responsibility, our responsibility as parents, is to create the right fertile soil for that little seedling to grow. And I know you're devoted to your children. I know that if a doctor said you've got to cut off your arm to save your child, you do it. So it's not about the fact that you're not committed to your children, but I'd love you to imagine what it would be like to be a compassionate parent with consistent and firm boundaries. And just tell me in the chat box how that would feel. And as you're writing, it's still being a little bit slow because I know that you'll have written things already. But as you're thinking of that, I'd like you to bring to mind a stressful situation. I think somebody's already written that they let their frustrations boil over and get shouty. Experiencing difficulty with dinner times taking forever. Yeah, I bet there's other people having that kind of thing. It's what we call the hotspots. So bring to mind one of your hotspots, whether it's dinner or whether it's leaving the house in the morning or whether it's getting them to come and have a bath or get out of the bath, or bedtime, those kind of stressful situations. And I'd like you to grab your workbook. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that already. But in your workbook, I show you the compassion cooperation matrix. So already you've got written down the bottom, your connection and compassion. On the x-axis and on the y-axis is kids' level of cooperation. And I want you to notice what you see about yourself as I tell you about the different quadrants on this axis. So quadrant 1, bottom left. This is when you have low connection or compassion, and actually they're not doing what you want. So you've got low levels of cooperation. And generally what's going on when you're in that quadrant is that you're nagging, you're shouting, you're repeating yourself. You might be making hollow threats, things like, right, that's it, no TV for a month, or you're not going to go to the party, or, around Christmas out comes Father Christmas isn't going to come. So hollow threats. And what happens when we make hollow threats? So just think about this also with dinner time, which quite a few of you have already mentioned. We'll say things like, right, that's it, I'm taking your food away, and they know that you're not going to. So they ignore us, and we actually don't get cooperation. It's very different. You can't make a child eat. So, get cooperation by shouting at them in order to get them to eat is never going to work. But they'll ignore us. And then we'll get into another vicious circle, because when we're ignored, we feel really frustrated and we'll feel like we've been taken for a ride. So quadrant 2, as I said, I could have used some absolute brute force to get Felix in that car. I could have used fear. I could have said, right, we're leaving, and, threatened to drive off. I would never have got to the bottom of what the problem was. And also he would have felt incredibly resentful. So then you lose the connection and you lose your compassion for your child when you do that. Now, I am not saying, if you see yourself in these quadrants, I am not saying you're a bad parent, but this is all about learning how to do something differently. So, and often we'll swing, but you'll see that the level of connection isn't where you want it to be, or the level of cooperation isn't where you want it to be when you're in that quadrant. So you may have some high connection or high compassion with your child. But the problem sometimes with the way you're doing that is that it's actually quite confusing for your child, because you're giving in. So, it might be that you've said no, that you're not going to buy an ice cream in the park, and they, give you the whole, big eyes and fat tears, and you say, oh, okay, I will. Or you might have said no sweets before dinner, and again, please, mommy, please, and you give in. So, or daddy, there's some dads on here, which is great. The thing about it is it's confusing, and it puts the child in charge. Around dinner times, you might say that's all there is, and then they asking you for all kinds of different things, and you give in, and you're like become a bit of a short order chef. I'm not judging you about this, but I'm showing you that you're not getting the kind of cooperation that you want. You won't be getting them to listen to you or do what you say if you're swinging around and being what I call too soft. So, but I'm going to show you now where you want to be headed. And this is about having consistent boundaries, having an awareness of a child's emotional world. It's so key for our children to have us be able to develop their emotional intelligence. It's absolutely crucial for their success. So I want you to write these down. This is the quadrant you want to be headed for. Consistent boundaries and an emotional awareness. I'll show you again the 4 boxes, Jenny. You want them to respect you. You also want to show respect to them, but you want them to respect you. You want them to listen to you, and you will get them to respect you, and you will get them to listen to you, and they will feel connected when you stay in this quadrant. And that's when you've got high connection and compassion and high levels of cooperation. So in the hotspots, which quadrant would you put yourself in? So there they are again. So if we bring to mind those hotspots, so these, you've come on this because you're experiencing tantrums, you're experiencing them not listening to you, you're having the meltdowns, and you're probably, some of them will be triggered by these hotspots. So, you might find that you're having more tantrums around meal times. And I'd like you to tell me where you are when you're dealing with those hotspots. Are you nagging and making hollow threats? Are they ignoring you? Are you using a bit of force or fear? And therefore they're resentful. Are you giving in a bit too much? And therefore that's confusing for a child. We used to have it over the television when I started parenting classes. We used to just constantly give in on whether or not we would switch the television off. And I went to turn it off one day and my little toddler screamed at me, "I'm the boss, you can't touch the television." And it was because it was confusing for him. I needed to be in charge, but he hadn't seen it because I was swinging around. I was doing what is called pendulum parents. So again, this isn't a judgment, but I can see quite a lot of you are in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2, or some of you saying quadrant 3. And I'm sure there are times when you're also in quadrant 4 when you feel connected, but it's about learning how to stay there, learning how for you to be consistently in quadrant 4. So I want to tell you about how Felix turned out. So Felix is nearly 21 now. And we have had a journey with him that has taught us so much about parenting and about what I'm, emphasizing to you tonight. And what I know that this little boy, who did have a very challenging temperament, would not have turned out to be the kind, compassionate, go-getting, funny, loving boy that he is today, had we not used the tools that I'm talking to you about tonight. And he phoned me the other day and he said, there he is with our cat Molly, who is adored by the whole family. And he said, Mum, he's at university, and he said, Mum, can I have a chat with you? Now, this is music to your ears when you have an older child, because very often they don't want to talk to you. And I said, sure, tell me what's going on. And he told me that, he said, I've been anxious. I've got exams coming up and I don't know if I've been studying enough. And he just chatted it through with me. And he said, but Mum, you know how you told me that I should eat better? Well, I've stopped eating so much sugary things. And I went to the supermarket and I bought lots of vegetables. And that makes me feel better. And then he said, on Bank Holiday Monday, are you doing anything? And I said, no, why? And he said, well, would you like to, I know Dad's playing golf with Nico. Would you like to come and visit me? So tomorrow I'm going to take the train to Nottingham and visit him. And honestly, this child would not have turned out this way had we not used what we know to be those skills of that compassion and boundaries, the combination. So it's just, that's why I love this work. So take your notebook. And actually what I'd like to hear in the chat box is this resonating for you? Tell me something that you've got already. Because again, I want you to take stuff away. I want you to get value. So tell me maybe just a yes if it's resonating. And somebody's saying, yeah, Matthews wants his daughters to grow up and still feel they can talk to you. And so, yeah, this is why, Matthew, this isn't, I'm not just talking here about dealing with little children. I'm talking about investing in that foundation, that fertile soil of parenting for life. Because we want to make sure that these children that you're parenting now grow into confident, healthy teenagers and young adults. And what you do now has an incredibly incredibly powerful impact on how they turn out. So secret one is secret one is talk so kids will listen. So write that down. Talk so kids will listen. It's the actually the title of a great book, and stick around. I've got an extra prize for you that's to do with the title of it's to do with that book. It's Talk So Kids Will Listen. Why do we want to talk so kids will listen? What's that going to get? Why are we going to gain from talking so kids will listen? Well, look, tell me if you can in the chat box. It's, as I say, it's coming a little slowly for me. We want them to listen to us because so much of what we've got to get them to do is sensible. We know that they've got to eat, they've got to be clean, they've got to get the bath, they've got to go to nursery if they're at nursery. But so many of the battles are coming when they're not listening to us. So we need to talk in a way that they are going to listen. How would you feel? And I'd like you to write this down. How would you feel? How do you feel by being shouted at? How do you feel by being judged? How do you feel by being told off? We somehow think that children are we need to tell our children off in order for them to listen to us. But actually, if you think about what it's like for you, perhaps you think about it in your relationship or perhaps in the workplace. How do you feel if you're being shouted at or judged or told off? Do you feel open to being listening to that person or doing what they've asked? I very much doubt it. So I want you to really get clear on that this is how we feel, and therefore that's how our children feel. And I'm going to want to tell you about Renata. So Renata is a very busy working mum, but she is an extremely stressed working mum because of the difficulty she is having with Robert. So little 6-year-old Robert looks very angelic there, and that was not the experience that Renata and her husband were having. He was very rude, he was very aggressive, and things had got so bad at school that he was in really big trouble and he'd been banned from the school bus. So Renata came on my program, the Tantrum Taming Toolkit, and I'm going to tell you about that more later. And she learned tools because as I have said already, well, I may not have said it like this, we're not taught to be parents. I haven't said it like this, but it is so crucial to get the right tools in order to bring out the best in our children. And that combination of compassion and boundaries was what Renata learned. She particularly used a model of communicating called reflective listening. And she really started to connect so much better with Robert. You know, she had been telling him off and threatening him. She had been complaining that now she had lost so much time because she was having to drive him to school instead of put him on the bus. She was really anxious. She was not sleeping properly at night. So that was impacting her work. And she had tried, you know, the usual route of getting crosser and crosser with him. But instead, she learned to praise him in a different way. She learned the model of reflective listening. And the result, within 3 weeks of Renata accessing this information, Robert was awarded given the award for the best behaved child at school. He was also allowed to go back on the bus. The positive ramifications for Renata and her husband were huge. They started to just be so much clearer about bedtimes, have much better boundaries so that he was more rested in the morning. So much more. I'm not going to tell you more about Renata, but you know, it's amazing how quickly you can turn things around with the right tools. So write this down. Behavior improves when we catch the good. I know that might sound sort of simple, but there's so many layers to that. And actually what parents will say to me is, well, look, Camilla, you know, there is no good. I'm just dealing with, you know, so much misbehavior. There is no good. And I will say to you, then you need to learn how to catch it because it's not always obvious. But when we do catch the good, behavior improves. So how could you get a quick win? So from secret 1, talk so kids will listen. How could you get a quick win from what you've heard so far? So jot that in the chat box. What could you do differently? I'm going to show you secret 2. So this is, write this down too. We are going at a pace. I know that. We're moving fast because I just want you to get the most value. And I'd like you to just think about this. Standing in your child's shoes. So this is secret 2. So this is even when it pushes your buttons. So look at this little boy. Now you could interpret this as, particularly if you've been having a little hot chocolate with this little boy, and suddenly he starts to scream that he wants another one. And maybe, you're triggered by that face. And perhaps you've just said to him, look, there's no more, we haven't got time for another hot chocolate. We've got to collect your brother. And, you've already had one. And you could get really cross about that. But we could interpret it in another way. We could stand in his shoes and think, well, he's had a really nice time with you. He's had a little hot chocolate and he's disappointed that it's finished. And he doesn't think about collecting his brother. He's just very much in the moment, because children are in the moment. So that's standing in your child's shoes. And that's what Becky had to do. So Becky is a very busy mum of 2. She runs a business teaching children fitness. And she's got 2 children, as I say, she's a mum of 2. She was particularly having difficulty with her second child, her daughter. And the fights in the morning about leaving the house, or particularly in homeschooling, she was having massive fights with her daughter. It meant sometimes she was late for her classes. And she was, again, just really unhappy with how she was being, how she was responding to her daughter, but just didn't know how else to deal with her. She learned how to do role plays with her. She also learned about reflective listening. And there's a little video that Becky has made that I'll send to you after this, that just says, she really made such a different impact on her daughter by changing the approach to her. And she said it's just such a relief. She's so glad that she learned how to do things differently, because it was just, that whole thing, you do the same thing over and over and you expect a different result. So standing in your child's shoes helps you connect and be compassionate. And you've got to think about what's driving your child's behavior. If you think about the story that I told you about Felix, it was not, what was driving his behavior was being teased and feeling uncomfortable with these children that he just wasn't gelling with. But it wasn't that he was a nasty child. And that's what we'll often think, my God, they're just nasty. We'll tell them you're horrible in order to try and get them to behave better. But it doesn't work like that. And I know that you believe in compassion because you're still with me. And Kirsty also believed in compassion, but she was at her wit's end with Nina's jealousy and her demanding behavior. So she has little Rory, who is 9 months old, and there's little Nina, who's 2.5. And she was literally scared to leave the 2 of them together, because Nina would lie on Rory, she'd tug at him, she'd slap him, and she was so demanding, whether it was getting into the bath, she didn't want to get undressed, then she'd eventually get her into the bath and she wouldn't get out of the bath, she'd demand 10 stories, not 2. And Nina was just exhausted. Kirsty was just exhausted. She was actually spending quite a lot of money putting Nina in nursery when she didn't need to, just to sort of get away from the stress of dealing with her. And she, as I say, she was making it worse by telling her off. But she used the 3 C's that comes from my program. So that's about connecting, that's about staying calm, and that's about giving choices within limits. And again, it was so simple. She said that, some of these things are so simple, but we're not taught how to deal with these situations with our children. And we think that we should know. And she phoned me the other day and she said, you know what, just yesterday, Nina had said, Mummy, Rory I'm going to play with Rory now, but I'm going to put this toy and this toy on the shelf so he can't reach, because they're precious and I don't want him to play with them, but I'm going to sit and play with them. And that meant that Kirsty could get their lunch ready without any sort of stress around it. So simple things can make such a huge impact. What are you getting so far? Are you still with me? And just, is this resonating with you? So you can just tell me in the chat box if this is resonating, and maybe something already, again, from that secret, standing in their shoes, that you can take away. So secret 3 is that our behavior impacts their behavior. We very often think their behavior impacts our behavior. They are having a meltdown. Of course, I'm going to get cross. But I want to show you that it's actually the other way, because children are sponges, and they are good news. I'm going to pop my camera on. Good news. They are sponges for the positive. They pick up, they have antennae, they pick up on everything. And don't think that they don't, because they do. So, you know, the good news is that they are really sponges for the good, and you change your approach, and you will notice, like I've told you about Nina and Renata, sorry, about Kirsty and Renata and Becky, you change your approach and they absorb the good, and then out comes the good. It's not always straightforward, and it's not always obvious, but they are sponges. So write that down. And I'm going to go on to the next slide to what this says. Yes, okay. So this is what works with compassionate parenting with boundaries. When you're positive, firm, and consistent. And very often parents, a bit like we looked at in those other quadrants, very often you might have, sometimes it's a sort of a tag thing. You know, you might have one parent that's very firm, perhaps leaning too much towards the overly strict side, and one who's positive, but you know, neither of them are consistent. So that's, you know, a kind of combination of parents. But what I want you to think about is that when you get that combination of being positive, firm, and consistent, that's when you can apply the whole idea of compassion with boundaries. And that's what children need for a healthy foundation in order to thrive. And Michelle and Ed really wanted Liel to thrive. Michelle was finding that she was really losing confidence in herself as a parent. In fact, it had impacted her so much that she'd wanted to study, but she just didn't think she was even capable of it. She felt stuck and she didn't like herself, and she was using bribes and threats, and Liel was having massive tantrums. She also came on my program, I'll tell you about shortly, and she learned how to stop, listen, and evaluate. And she told me that she used it just the other night. This is months after she'd been on the program. And she said Liel has got a new bed. When they're moving house, she's going to get a new bed, but she'd got it into her mind that this bed was coming that night. So ordinarily, Michelle said that tantrum, when she realized that the bed wasn't there, I don't know if any of you have had this, when they're thinking, you know, expecting one thing and they're not able to get it, that tantrum can last a really long time unless you have the tools to be able to deal with it and know your child and know how to apply it to your child. So she sat down with Liel, and she was able to engage with her and connect with her and explain that the bed wasn't going to be there tonight, and that but it was coming, and that it was going to be when they moved into the new house. And, you know, it was quite skilled, and Michelle did it. She nailed it. And within 5 minutes, Liel had calmed down, and they decided that they would bake cakes the next day. So she sent me the photograph of the cakes that they had baked together. So thinking about you, how would it feel for you to avoid conflict? What would that feel like? Just imagine a week from now or a month from now that you really know how to avoid conflict. How would life be? Would you feel calmer? Would it be easier? Would you feel happier? Would you have more energy? Because let's face it, having conflict with a child is very, very draining. And would you feel more connected? And how would it feel for you to stay firm but positive? You know, that kind of permission. I'm the parent here. I want to be firm. I need to hold firm on things. Would it be a relief? Also think about your child. Would they feel more secure because you know where you're, you know what you're doing? Would you feel more in charge? Would you feel more confident? And again, take yourself out 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, when you know how to stay firm but positive. So just imagine that. And here's, I want to just tell you that a skilled and informed parent will raise a resilient and emotionally balanced child. And that is what, again, I've said it already. That is what we want for our children in the future. They need to be resilient. We can't protect them from everything. They need to be able to roll with the punches, because they are going to, and if they haven't already, they will face difficult situations. And if you have got that connection with them and that open communication, they'll tell you things. Instead of covering up, they'll tell you things, and that will help them be more resilient. And children with high emotional intelligence, it's very, very well documented and very well researched, are far more likely to be successful in life than just focusing on the academics. So they need to be emotionally balanced and intelligent. And if they're not, you're often winding up paying for a lot of therapy. They can hit the teens and really, you're dealing with a massive amount of anxiety, self-doubt. So it's, I'm not just talking about, managing these toddler tantrums. It's a much broader perspective that I'd encourage you to take and think, very, very carefully about. So here is what we have been covering. That when you're in quadrant 1, that's about nagging and hollow threats and repeating yourself, and then they ignore us. When you're in quadrant 2, maybe you can get them to cooperate by using fear, but then they're going to be, or even threats of punishment, but then they're going to be resentful and shut down. When you're being too soft and giving in and inconsistent, it's confusing and it puts them in charge, and they need you to steer the ship. And when you're in quadrant 4 with those consistent boundaries, that emotional awareness, they respect you and they listen to you and they feel connected with you. And the Duchess of Cambridge, I always get it wrong, the Duchess of Cambridge, that's correct, says some of the science behind child development is extraordinary. And this is what we're finding. I mean, the 20 years that I've been teaching parents and working with parents, so much more science has come out, particularly about neuroscience, which I include in my program. And it shows what a precious time this is and what an amazing opportunity we've got to really nurture their minds and put them in the best possible position for their future lives. So the 3 secrets we've covered is talk so kids will listen, stand in your child's shoes, and the fact that our behavior impacts their behavior. So how skilled do you feel right now? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how skilled would you put yourself? If 0 is, and particularly if you bring to mind these difficult situations that you're facing, if 1 is like, I really don't feel skilled at all, I'm kind of ricocheting between, coming down with sort of completely nutty threats or just giving in for a quiet life, that would be a 1. And 10 is, yeah, I've really nailed it. I know how to be positive, firm, and consistent, connect emotionally with my child, be compassionate, be firm. So where would you put yourself? Give yourself a score of how skilled you feel on a scale of 1 to 10. If you can jot that one of those numbers, a number, in the chat box, between 1 and 10, how skilled do you feel as a parent, particularly when faced with the challenging situations that I know you face, because you wouldn't be here with me if you don't. So 5, I don't know about how to be in her shoes, so to do with picky eating, says Jamie from Canada. What else? Who else has got a score there? How would you score yourself? See if somebody else, they're probably a little bit delayed. So I'm going to take a tiny bit of drink of water again. Okay, stick with me. Because I'd also like, do still give me one of those scores, 1 to 10. 5, particularly when it comes to being firm, somebody said. Okay, and how would you feel if you dramatically improved your skills and confidence? How would that feel? So lots of 5s I'm getting. How would it feel? Husband says he's a 2 due to lack of consistency. Yeah. How would you feel if you dramatically improved your skills and confidence? What would that be like? And, like I said, imagine in 3 weeks from now that you suddenly felt, wow, you know what? I've just done something differently. I've used a different tool and it really worked. So how would that feel to you? And just tell me in the chat box how that would feel. Okay, so in Maya Angelou, who's an amazing writer, says success is liking yourself, liking what you do and liking how you do it. I really like that quote. So parents usually have a combination of these 3 challenges. I've given you what I can already tonight. I would really encourage you to stay with me because I want to share with you how you can take this further if you would like to. You absolutely don't have to, but I'd love you to just stay with me and listen on. But I'd like you to think about this. These are generally the 3 challenges. It's like, how do I stop shouting? And again, you might not be a shouter. I suspect you are. It's very, very common. But perhaps, you're also nagging or criticizing. How do I stop doing that? How do I get them to listen and cooperate? Because that's what we want. There are, like I said earlier, there are so many things that we need to get our children to do. So how do I do that? How do I get them to listen and cooperate? And how do I stay connected and understand my child? Because children need to be understood. That is, their absolute human need is to be all of us as humans. We have a need to be understood, and children are confusing. And we need to learn about how their minds work in order to really understand our children. And very often, like I had on that fateful holiday, we react to the behavior that is presented to us. Rather than looking and using the tools to look behind it and really get that connection so that they do open up and you do find out what's bothering them. So it's a really important human need to be understood. And those are the challenges that most parents face. But what I'd love to hear from you is what's been most valuable. And what's resonated for you. So I've already got that you would feel incredibly happy, extremely good. It would be amazing if you could imagine, that you're able to get your child to listen to you. You've got that strong connection. And somebody's saying, good if it led to results. Well, listen on, because I've got like I say, I've got some things that I want to tell you about from my program that really has got incredible results for parents. So what action will you take as a result of what you've got so far? So perhaps you can stick something in the chat box about the action. And as you're sticking that in, I just want to say to you that, I write up, I'm not special. What I mean is, I think that there's a real misnomer that, there's this, the kind of natural mother or father. There's, those terms like earth mother. And I am not that person. My husband will contest. This is the word contest. Anyway, he'll back me up. I'm not naturally patient, but I've learned to use the tools in order to keep my patience. Not always, but it's a rare moment when I shout at my children. My daughter, when she was 3, witnessed another mother shouting at her child for banging her leg with the child banged the mum's leg with the bike. And I said to Alice, oh gosh, I think that mum's having a bad day. And Alice looked up at me and she said, Mummy, she doesn't love her child. And I said, oh, okay. So if I shout at you, what do you feel? And she just said, you don't love me. And that's what children will think. And so that's why I've had to learn the tools, because it's, you know, I will feel like shouting, but I've learned these skills in order to be the best parent that I can be. And it is not something that comes naturally to us. We haven't necessarily had the best example in our upbringing. And we've also got our temperament and our child's temperament. So it's, like I say, I've just learned how to do this. And that's why I would love you to listen for some next steps that you could take. Now, this isn't for everybody. I'm going to talk to you about my program. If it's not for you, then thank you so much for staying on this long. Please take things away from you that I hope from tonight that you will use. And if you are interested, then listen to what I've got to say. So I'll just switch that off so that you can see. So from my 20 years experience of working and researching and studying parenting and testing out things on my own family, I've developed a program that the parents that I've referred to through this webinar have all been on. And it's called the Tantrum Taming Toolkit. It doesn't actually have to mean that you have a child that has out and out tantrums, but it's about managing challenging behavior. So the Tantrum Taming Toolkit is something that I wish I had had 20 years ago when I started in parenting, because like I say, it's not something that we're taught. And, you know, think about it. I suspect that most of you have been on an antenatal class. You know, when you were pregnant, you probably went to a class to learn about giving birth, maybe a little bit about breastfeeding, or maybe a bit about weaning a child. And after that, we're expected to know what to do. And yet we don't, because it's not something that necessarily comes naturally to us. So the Tantrum Taming Toolkit shows you how to parent with compassion and boundaries for a calmer, happier, and easier life. Now, compassion and boundaries might not be your thing, in which case, you know, you won't like this program. But if it is, then I really think I'd love you to open your mind to what's involved in it and the opportunity for you to join. So it comes in 4 modules. I'm going to whiz through the modules because I want to have time for some questions. And I want to just, you know, like, yeah, give you a chance to ask me questions and me to, you know, be able to answer your questions. So module 1 is the foundation for mindful parenting. So what I mean by it's about, you know, and this is again something that we're really realizing how important this is. So mindful parenting is really consciously thinking about your parenting, not getting hijacked by your own emotions or triggering your own stress response to things. So it focuses on self-care for better results, clarity and confidence by things like managing your expectations of your child and of you as a parent, and adapting parenting for temperament. And that's something that I, swapping my camera in and out here, that's something that I learned so much about with my own children, about adapting your style to meet the temperament of your child. And it's not something that's talked about that much. Module 2 is strategies for misbehavior and tantrums. I mean, let's face it, so often we're paralyzed as to what to do when they're behaving in the way that you talked about at the beginning, that rudeness, the back chat, the 3-nature talk, the refusing to do things, the outright no's. So it's what to do in those moments. There's the model called the 3 C's to minimize the length of the tantrum, how to avoid them, and also taking responsibility. We want our children to learn from their mistakes, and the naughty step won't do that. If any of you are thinking that might work, please don't do it, and I'll tell you why, not now, but and helping them to say sorry. And Tara's there in the chat box. Lovely to have Tara on, because she's such a champion for the work that I'm doing, and it's great to have her support. So that's module 2. Module 3 is about bringing out the best in your child, transforming their behavior through the right kind of praise. You know, when it's not just about now. I use the praise that I teach in the Tantrum Toolkit with my husband, with my young adult children, with my teenagers. It's, people tell me they use it in the workplace with their team. So it's very powerful stuff. But it involves really learning it deeply. And because it's an online program, you can watch it over and over and really embed that language. And the same with the language to validate your child's emotions, to avoid those conflicts and deepen that connection. And I know that you're still here with me because you want that deep connection with your child, and the emotional, building that emotional intelligence, which will give them a gift for life. Because as I said, that's a way bigger predictor of success than anything else, is a child that's emotionally, and an adult that's emotionally intelligent. Often we've had to work at that. You know, we've had to pay for therapy to build our emotional intelligence because it wasn't something our parents knew about. Module 4 is systems for keeping you sane. I'm all about having good systems, having clear rules, having good boundaries, and really reaping the benefit from that. And also this great system for setting up for success, which some of you may have already heard about, but I go into it further in the program. So there's a lot within just the online part, but there is more to it than that. If you have to leave me now, because I just hit the hour, I always struggle to keep these workshops, these webinars within the hour. I believe you've got a link come up to show you how you can, I think that link is up. I think that's been set up to show you how you can learn more. Maybe I'll just put that there, learn more. Oh no, sorry, that's just gone to, I just clicked on my own link. Yeah, I think that link is up if you want to learn more, and I would absolutely love you to join me. But I'd love you to just listen on a bit more, because as I say, I've got time for questions, and I'll just tell you a little bit more about how the program works and the investment for you. Becky wrote that she is being the mum she had dreamed she would be. I mean, this is no joke. She said, just thank you so much for the course. And we're just so glad we're doing it. And she was able to use the screen far less because she just felt much more competent as a parent and was getting the best out of her child. So it includes some adult child role play. I have a little helper there, Piggy. Parents absolutely love the role plays that I do. It's been a really popular part of the course. And as I say, it comes in 4 modules, but it also comes with extra bonuses that parents have found just to be so great, because it makes the program live. It's an online program that you get lifelong access to, so you can review it in a way that really helps to deepen your learning. But it also gives you some live coaching sessions. So there's 4 group coaching sessions with me where you meet other parents. And you can do little breakout groups where you chat to each other. It's very much creating that supportive environment where you learn from each other, and you get that sense of relief that you're not alone, but also you're all passionate and keen to take action and make change and learn the tools. And bonus 2 is an extra, it's an exclusive Facebook community. Extra environment to share wins, ask for quick help from each other, supporting each other, great tips coming from parent to parent. You can ask questions of me. I jump in daily on that Facebook community to really support you to make these changes. And bonus 3, I'm a big believer in looking after yourself. So I got the help of Lauren Bear to teach you about meditation, and she's recorded a very special meditation. So I've really put everything that I can into the program. Melissa Denham was at her wit's end. She just didn't know how to change her approach, but she followed the steps exactly. And she says that Milla, her little girl, is a different child. Her advice is forget expensive toys or whatever you might otherwise be spending on yourself or your child. This is the best present to give your family. Andrea says, you know, just this morning, she noticed how much calmer breakfast was. Her little boy is so much happier. And she knows that it's from the tools that she learned from the program, which she did a few months ago. So it's, you know, it is stuff that lasts. So, you know, just think about the value that you could get in your life from taking away some of the things that are draining for you, that you spend time and money on. And just think about, you know, having access to this program, which is, like I say, you've got it for life and you will use it for life. So the value of it would be a minimum of £1,800. And I have it tonight for only £297. And I'm going to show you in a sec some of the comparisons of the things that we do spend our money on as parents and as people. So £297. If you're coming in from North America, that's approximately $413. But I also am very keen to help spread the payments. So you can pay £115 for 3 months, or that's $160 spread over 3 months. I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee because I'm just really keen for parents to feel confident in making this investment. And it's, you know, because I feel so confident, I ask you to go through the program and make notes in your workbook. And if you feel at the end these tools have not worked for you, you just need to come back to me. So there's really no risk and no hard feelings if it doesn't work for you, and I give you your money back. So like I say, it's on tonight for £297, or you can spread those payments. I found this, which I think was so interesting. The average cost to raise a child, this is from Money Supermarket, is £100,000. And actually just look at this. I mean, you might think, what? But this is, I've heard that statistic many times. Baby gear. This is the average spend on baby gear between 0 and 3 years old. For some reason, they split girl and boy. But it's over £5,500 of baby gear. I guess prams, cots, cribs, all the rest of it. Toys, £1,900. Toddler clothes, £4,000. So when we think about it in comparison, because very often as parents we're thinking, oh, that sounds, you know, ooh, investing in a parenting program, that do I need it? Look at the money that you'd spend on other things that maybe you could cut back on. But I have an extra bonus that I want to offer you because I'm so keen to get you signed up. The minute you get signed up, you get access to Module 1. They're drip fed. So you'll get access for Module 1 and then Module 2 will come through in a week's time. But I'm really keen for you to get started. So I'm offering a special extra bonus tonight. This is so hot off the press that it isn't all completely finalized, but it is an amazing pack of what I call my parent pack to complement everything that you get within the program. It's like flashcards and beautifully designed booklets so that you can really embed the learning, stick it up on your wall, put it on your fridge, remind yourself, because it's a muscle. So it's about keeping that muscle flexed. So tonight, anybody that signs up using that link can grab the bonus pack, and that will be included. It's an acknowledgement for you staying with me, investing in your family, and coming live on the webinar. So I would love you to do that. Just so you know, once you've gone through to the checkout, you can choose the one payment or the split payment. You get that 30-day money back guarantee. And I would just absolutely love to invite you to take action. You might be thinking, I don't have the patience. I promise you it comes from learning the tools. It's as simple as that. Once you start to see that positive reinforcement, it makes you feel more patient. You might be thinking I should be able to cope on my own with the challenges of parenting. I hope from what I've said so far, and you know, that really research tells you that the more skilled you are, if you do a job, You wouldn't do that job without training. And it's the same with parenting. So don't suffer on. If you like what I am about, then I offer you that guarantee. I just know you'll love the program. You might need time to think about this. That's fine. Tonight is that very special extra bonus, that parent pack. And I close the doors on Thursday. So just know that. But I would say, if you like this, what's stopping you? What's holding you back? So that's the bonus. In fact, I'd love to know what is holding you back. So tell me what your reservations are. Tell me what if you're still here, and I have a feeling that you are kind of tempted to do this program, more than kind of. I think you are tempted to do it. I think you've liked what I've said tonight. I know that I was in that position over 20 years ago when I went to a class because I just felt, perhaps I should know this. Perhaps it's a silly thing to do. And it was the best decision I ever made. And I became so passionate that I trained to teach others. So tell me what's holding you back. And I would absolutely love to be able to help you make the decision one way or another. If you're on the fence, let me help you make that decision. Let me help you just be clear about what it is that you want to do. So just do stick in the chat box what your questions are or what your reservations are, and I'd be really happy to answer them. One question that I have is that was asked earlier is, how long do I have access to the training for? So the online module is unlimited. It's lifelong access. That training will be there for you. Also know that every time I update it, you get the new version of it. So at the moment, it's version 2.0. I have no doubt that I won't add more to it because I can't help myself to improving things. So, I've had fantastic feedback from it already. Parents have loved it. They literally said there's nothing to improve, but I'm quite a perfectionist. So I know that I will improve the program, and that's for you. No extra charges. You just get lifelong access to it. Another question that I had earlier is how do the group calls work? Well, how they work is you get sent a link that is on Zoom so you can see each other. It is on a Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. UK time. If you can't make it, it's recorded and it's great to watch it back because you can send in a question ahead of time and I may well be able to cover it. You can also ask questions live. You get support from each other. It's a really nice, when I went to parenting classes, it was always face-to-face. And this is just a wonderful way of being able to reach people in Perth or in Canada or, all over the place and come together. So the last session, I had somebody coming in from New Zealand. I had somebody from the States, really all over the place. So Ibiza. So that's the beauty of it. But it's very much, you really feel a sense of that, belonging to this group. So that's how that works. Do stick your questions up. I think I am keeping an eye on the chat box to see what's at the top. But other questions that I've had are, will this be applicable if my child doesn't actually have tantrums? Absolutely. All children have challenging behavior. Some of it may be less challenging than others. Some children are less challenging than others. But it isn't just about the behavior. This is about that deep connection with your child, and all our children need us to be connected to us. And they all need firm boundaries. And they all need to learn how to respect us, and we need to respect them. So although it is called the Tantrum Taming Toolkit, it's very much about building that connection and boundary with your child and managing those challenging behaviors in order to bring out the best in them. That's what we want. My child's too young, or I feel they might be too young. They're not that difficult yet. What parents often find is 1 week to the next, that child can have a change. And whereas certain techniques worked before, suddenly you feel quite powerless and you just don't know how to deal with them. It's not that there's something wrong with your child, that they have different stages of development, but it's the handling that's the important thing. So somebody here has said, my children are 9, 7, and 4, different stages, different challenges. So I often feel a bit overwhelmed. Will the course give me the tools to deal with this? Absolutely, Kira. I mean, I've had parents come on the program with 11-year-olds. They were 11-year-old twins. It's very much, I use this stuff with my teenagers. The examples are geared more towards those children in nursery, primary schools, but definitely you will get tools to deal with your children's behavior and be able to adapt it. You've also got the support of the Facebook group. You've got the support of the group Zoom calls. And if you wanted, you can upgrade to have my premium program, which is extra one-on-one sessions with me. So that might be something that you could be interested in, but definitely this stuff works across the board and it works with adults too. Other parents have said things like, I haven't got the time. What I would say is, it's an investment. How long do we spend? How much energy do we expend dealing with the battles with our children? And you know what? It's really not that much time to invest to reap a massive amount of benefit. So we make time. When something's really important, we absolutely make the time. I mean, I know that if I've got a TV program I really want to watch, I make the time to do it. I study on how to give really good presentations. I've really had to work at this. So it doesn't necessarily, you might think, oh, she's very fluent. It wasn't always like that. So I had to learn how to do that more and better. And I invested the time in that program. So, it is about making that commitment. So this program is not for people who aren't committed. It's about parents who are committed to making change and taking action. And therefore you find the time. But if you're thinking, right, well, I'm just never going to be able to do it, then you're not committed enough. But when you do commit and you do sign up, then you will find the time to do it. Somebody else said, my partner's not on board. How will it work? Well, I've had a lot of parents come on their own, do the program, certainly come on the Zoom calls on their own. You will find that because it's a really easy medium, your partner can just watch it on phone, on iPad, on computer screen. You can watch it together. You can, go to bed and sit up in bed and watch it. It's very, very versatile. And what they'll often find is that even if your partner hasn't started by watching it, they'll see the positive responses that you're getting, the results that you're getting. And that's very often when they'll start to want to learn. And somebody else says, I just don't think I've got the patience. Again, I just like to say, I am not by nature a patient person. It's learnt. I've learnt how to do it because I know what tools to use. You could imagine going into the kitchen and trying to make a cake without the right tools. You'd soon be impatient about that. If you're not a baker, think about a barbecue without the right fuels. So, it's when you've got the right equipment, the right tools, it just brings patience with it. And when you see it working, it becomes that positive, virtuous circle, they call it. So it means that you just, you feel more confident because it's worked, and then you feel more competent, and that leads to more confidence. So it's that really good virtuous circle. And you just, our children are so precious. And when you see how that little tiny seedling is blooming, it just makes you realize, wow, this investment was just so worth it. So any other questions that I could answer? Just what I might just go on is to refresh the investment is £297. or 3 times 115. Just while I'm flicking through that, just to remind you, sign up by tonight and you can grab that parent pack that's brand new. And then no, that's not that. So yeah, just so you know, that's my camera is hiding it. It's 115 times 3. But all you need to do is click through. And if for those that sign up tonight, I know what I forgot to tell you, and I always forget this one. Anybody that signs up tonight, I'm going to send a gift of one of my favorite, it's been around for a long time. It's called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. It's one of my favorite parenting group books. Really easy to use, and it's it's tested of time, or whatever that expression is. So that's my gift as an extra little gift for you being here tonight, and you spending your time with me and investing in my program. So it's only for people that have come on live, and I would absolutely love to be able to gift that to you. I've gifted it to quite a number of people. Amazon's done very well out of me, but that would be a nice thing to be able to offer you for your time with me tonight. So is there anything else that I can help you with? Any further questions that you'd like me to answer? So Kira was just saying different stages. I don't know if you're still with me. Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say, I'm not surprised you feel overwhelmed, Kira. And I would just say it's also about you need some more systems. And screen time is a difficult one, but I would definitely use it as a reward, but rather than threaten to take it away if they behave badly. You'll get tools to help them behave better, help them to want to behave better. The program is so great because you can just keep on reinforcing it, and going over those modules and going over the questions in your workbook, so that you really embed it. And it does take some time commitment. I'm not apologizing for that, but the results speak for themselves. So it's really worth that time investment. And Tara said, they just they feel so confident in how to handle their little boy now, worth every penny, which is lovely. Sorry, Matthew, you had asked a question. I should ask my eldest daughter more how she's feeling and what's making her happy or sad, what will make her feel better. Yeah, Matthew, there's more to, if you're still here, there's more to it than that. Actually, asking a child how they feel won't necessarily get the feeling, get them to express the feeling. Some will, but it's pretty rare. It's quite a skill, and I teach you it in module 3, how to get them to open up to us. So any other questions? I'm still here. It often gets to this stage in the webinar where I can see that people are still on, but please don't be shy to ask a question. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to tell you, actually, there was a little story about Emma. So this is really interesting. So when we talk about challenging behavior, it's not always like tantrum because they haven't had the chocolate milk that they wanted. Izzy had a rare disorder which required getting regular blood tests. They were about every 3 weeks, and it was the most stressful event of the week. She was absolutely hysterical about getting her blood test done. The hospital would sort of hear her screaming as they were walking down the corridor. And they used the GREAT method. She really wasn't just that she used the GREAT method, but she used a few other tools. But they prepared Izzy for that blood test. They learnt how to prepare in advance with her, and use different tools to be able to boost her confidence and also empathize with her feelings. And the very next hospital visit was amazing. They said she just walked in, didn't make a fuss. The nurse's jaws were on the ground. She put her arm out. They took her blood, and then she asked for her sticker. It was a totally different experience for them. So, you know, this isn't, even if you've got a child with an illness, you can use this stuff. It's just so versatile. So anything else that I can help you with? Otherwise, I think I will probably say thank you so much for joining me. I think the offer is still up there. So I would love you, just so you know, there it is along the top, myparentingsolutions.com/TTT-April. That is because this is my April cohort going through. Actually, we're May now. On Thursday this week, the doors close, and I won't be opening it up again for a few months. So it is an opportunity that I would absolutely love you to take. It's just such a wonderful program. You have the money back guarantee if that's something that you want to take me up on, and that gives you that reassurance that you know, if you don't like it, then ask for your money back. So kind of no risk. So do join me. I absolutely would love to have you. Extra special gift of a book for those that have joined me live. And, you know, thank you so much. I'm still here. I will probably just pop my camera off for a few seconds, but do ask me a question otherwise. So quite often what happens here is somebody suddenly pops up with a question. So I don't like to disappear, but I think I probably will. Okay, so I'm going to end the event now. Thank you so much for joining me.